Let's call the meeting to order for the Green Efforts Committee for March 1st, 2022. It's 7:03. At this point, we will go to the public comment portion of the meeting. So if there's anybody in attendance virtually that would like to speak at this time, they can raise their hand, and we'll give it just a few seconds so they can find it. Is there anybody on?
There are a few folks that have joined us as attendees this evening. So, yep, you go ahead, Garrett,
Yeah.
you drive.
We have Sierra Drevlin.
Hi, thank you.
Okay. Sierra, do you have anything to share? So it's a public comment portion of the meeting. Do you have any comments to share with the committee up front this evening?
Well, I just recently purchased an EV. So when we get to that section, I can provide some firsthand experience if needed.
Oh, sure. That would be great.
Perfect. Okay, is there anybody else in the public that wants to comment at this time? All right. Going twice. All right. Okay. Then let's move on to the next item, presentation. So that we don't have any presentations scheduled for tonight.
Correct.
I can't stand hearing my own voice. All right. All right, moving on to item D of the agenda, administrative. So at this point, we will approve the minutes of the February 1st, 2022 meeting. And put them up there. Has anybody or everybody had a chance to read them?
Yes.
All right, if so, I'll entertain a motion.
I forward a motion to approve. Kate?
I can second that.
Stacy seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Perfect. Okay, now for the item E, public education goal, we're an update on the anti-idling status update, please.
Well, there's really no update unless, Sam, you have something else to add. I know the ball was in the court of the Westwoods group. They're going to start talking about the anti-idling once they get to that section, which I believe, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, I think is in March.
Yes.
Oh, here we are. It's March 1st.
Yeah. So around the corner. I do not have any update. The only thing I can think of is the message that went out today about the additional signs, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, but I just want to make sure. Yeah, well, if you guys are all set with schools, then we can transfer over to that. But
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have anything more. It's all, Tara's got that under control over there.
Okay.
okay, perfect. Okay, and so they are going to reach out when and if they need our support with anything. Is that kind of how that is left?
It's once they've done the project of developing the signs, then it'll be put back into our hands.
Okay, and then once they do that, then they're looking at doing perhaps like an inventory of like a pre and post the idling, air monitoring or whatever they were going to do. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So yes, and Kate, can you help me remember? I know you had reached out to Deep. You had done quite a bit of work, and I can't remember. Did they have signs for us, or they, at the end of the day, they didn't have signs that the town could use?
Yeah, they did, and I went and picked them up, and Sam has them, and Sam, I'll let you talk.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have quite a few actually, and we haven't installed them throughout yet, but there's plenty there. If we have identified places for the town as well, if we want to just use the ones that DEP provided for us. So
Yeah, they gave us 8, right, Sam?
yes.
Because we had thought 2 per school.
I think we're
but you
thinking
probably
one
don't
per
need that.
school, and
Yeah,
there's one we could do one at town hall if we want to.
Well,
right.
we had thought the loading docks, right? Were we gonna put
Yep.
them in at the loading, the deep signs at the loading docks? Cause they're, I'm assuming, and cause I haven't seen do they look like the sign, the picture that I sent around today, or are they different? I don't know what the deep signs look like.
Slightly different, but actually similar to what was at IAR, sans the spelling error.
Okay, so it matches the sign that I sent around today then. Yep, thanks, Garrett, with the spelling error, because, why not?
Actually, no, it says idling of vehicles is prohibited, is what it says. So sorry, it is different than that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. So this sign, all right, so for the deep signs, is your intent, Sam, then to install them at the loading docks at the schools?
Yes.
Okay, so there's, right, we have 4, 5, 6, 7 schools, 8 signs, so okay, so 1 sign for each location, plus a spare. So what we've got here are additional black and white signs due to apparent miscommunication on someone's part. So this is an exact replication of the sign that had been at IAR. And it was the picture that I sent to our highway superintendent so that he could get pricing. So he forwarded the picture so that he could get the pricing. And we got the pricing. It's approximately $25 a sign. They inadvertently went ahead and made the signs. So we have approximately 17 of these signs. They've been shipped to us. The highway superintendent confirmed that he can get an E to add it's a decal of sorts that gets put on the sign. So they can get the E's to put on the end of breath to make breath breathe. So we can correct them. At the same time, we've held on to them. I've known about this for about 2 weeks. We've held on to them. Oh, Jennifer Wynn is on. If we want to bump her over.
Yep, I'll take care of that.
Awesome. So we can keep the signs and pay for them if we think we can use them at other locations. If not, our intent, no, we'll pay. Yeah, no, we'll pay. We'll have to pay for them. Excuse me?
Will they discount it for the spelling error?
Well, probably, I mean, we'll work through that. We haven't, I want to define, because I didn't know if we had the DEEP signs. I didn't know if they were getting installed. I had no idea what the DEEP signs look like. So it's one of those, if we think we can use them, obviously with the spelling corrected, which I've confirmed can be done, then the town is happy to keep them and work with the group to get them installed. If we don't have a use for them, then we will return them to the sign company and say, sorry for the miscommunication, but these things happen and we don't have a need. We were just checking pricing and there isn't a need for them because they've changed. We're using students. We got some from DEEP. There's a student design project that's coming and that's the way it is. So it's just kind of how folks want to think about this. If we want to take a little time, we can take a little time. But this is kind of where we are. Like I said, there's approximately 17 signs. So I don't even know if we would even need that many.
Yeah. I mean, I guess from the school perspective, we don't need any more of those since the kids are going to be designing for the drive-up areas for the parents. But from a town perspective, are there buildings where these can go?
I can't.
Need?
The only possible location I thought of was Tungus Mead.
In the baseball field?
Little League might be another one. I can check.
I mean,
Anyone
17
have any
signs,
other?
that's a lot of signs.
Yeah, I was
Well,
gonna say
right,
17 is
because-
a lot of signs, and I think if we,
Yeah,
working with sign companies, they probably won't throw them out, but probably reuse the metal on them and just, re-sign them on top or whatever, so they could use them, maybe we could work something out and pay a portion, or not the whole thing, but I think 17 is a lot.
That
yeah.
was, yeah, my question was going to be if they can be reused by the sign company. I mean, I don't want them to go to waste, but I also think it looks a little tacky to put a sticker on at the end, so.
Well, it's gonna be, because that's how the signs are done, so the
Yeah.
lettering would match. It's
It would
not
match,
just a
okay.
it would match. It's gonna be the same height and the same font, the same
Okay.
anything. And so unless somebody was to go right up to it, you would never know standing looking at it.
Okay.
I just fear that if the town hangs on to them, they'll be in storage for 3 years, and then at
Well,
one point,
no,
they're gonna get tossed.
exactly. No, so unless we know, and I can check to see what Russ thinks if, if his thoughts on getting a few installed at Tungus Mead and Little League, and we keep 4 or 5 of them and return the rest. Okay.
Could we offer them to local businesses or see if, like through Rose, if anyone would want them? Or can the town not give away things?
Well, yeah, I think that starts to become a little bit problematic because it's about getting the word out equally and an equal distribution of the information and the opportunity and et cetera. So, yeah, I don't think we want to necessarily get into that. But, okay. So it sounds like we don't need them from the schools. We don't need, now, when Westwoods does their project
Mhm.
in their sign design, is the intent then for whatever they design, that sign is getting posted at all the schools, elementary through high school, for
Yes,
their
yes.
pickup areas? Okay.
yes.
And could we reuse these at that point, once the designs are done?
Oh, possibly. Yeah, and and Johnny, I tend to agree with you. At that point, it goes back to the sign company and let them figure out how, because it would basically be the same size, right? It's got to be kind of that MUTCD size that we can get on a sign post. And so it depends on what the design is like and how they're able to get it to fit on a sign appropriately. So, but yeah, we'd send them back and I would agree, they'll get reused. It's not gonna go and be wasted. So, okay, I'll check with Russ for Tungus Mead and Little League Fields, and otherwise I will, I'll let Jim Rusbason know that these can go back if we can't use any of them.
Okay, other comments? Okay, great, thank you. Moving on to item F, waste reduction goal, update on simple recycling.
Yep, hopefully everybody saw their, I don't know, did everybody get your town newsletter?
Yep.
Hopefully, they arrived in the mail, so we've got the recycling update for 2022. I think I may have shared this the last meeting, but we've had almost 50 tons of textiles have been recycled since the start of the program. Seems to be continuing strong. I think there was a little dip in the totals for January, which I'm not surprised right after the holidays and whatnot. And my expectation is that we bounce back up into the 2,000 to 3,000 pound range, continuing to move forward. But there were other articles, and just going to briefly hop back. The idling article made it in. Thank you very much, Kate, for taking the lead on that. It was great, and they got it in. There's a whole bunch of environmental articles right in the center. We've got things about storm drainage. We've got the simple recycling, our townwide cleanup day, the idling, and reduce, reuse, recycle. right down through as you open up the center of the newsletter. So,
I thought that looked great.
Yeah, thank you.
so yeah, so that's it for the simple recycling. I took it and ran with a couple other things, but it was nice to see it all in the newsletter, and the newsletter should be getting posted to the website here shortly. It's not there yet, but we should see it here shortly.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 2022 cleanup day discussion.
So today I filed the paperwork, the building permit with IAR to use the parking lot. So we'll switch from FHS to IAR as our fourth location. So I just did that today because the meeting is today, and you know, we do those things last minute. I filed it as two separate permits, one for the location for the just the cleanup day, and then the second one, which would be open more to discussion and probably make them more nervous, is this rummage sale idea. So we'll see what they think about that. And then for the rummage sale idea, I was thinking that I would just put it out on the Talk of Farmington and Unionville Talks and Farmington Moms or something on Facebook to just see what the interest level is before we really move forward. Does that sound okay?
So Stacy had reached out a few days ago or a week ago about, doing some kind of townwide yard sale at the cleanup day. The idea, I don't think it's a bad idea to see if there's any interest. I would have any questions if there's any kind of like issues. Do we have to have any disclaimers on what can actually be brought? That kind of stuff.
Well, I think the rules would be that whatever you bring, you have to bring home. So none of the items brought to the rummage sale will be allowed to go in the dump truck for the cleanup day.
Okay.
That would have to be policed.
And
So,
then, and we would have to find volunteers to kind of run this for that day.
yes, and I met with Loomis at the high school, and he is like, I can get you 20 to 30 kids in a second. I just have to put up a sign-up sheet. You tell me when to go. So everything's sort of like, I think the first two steps are to see if I guess is it the principal that approves the request, and then part of that request would be to use the cafeteria tables for the sale, or otherwise people would have to bring their own tables. So that could change things.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably not going to get the cafeteria tables because they're going to have to then bring in custodial. You're going to pay for staff.
Right.
So that's probably going to be a no. So it's going to have to be a full carry in, carry out would be my expectation, is what we're going to hear back. And I think the Facebook poll is probably fine. I would just caution that in the wording of the poll, to try to get a sense for whether people would be interested, I wouldn't specifically list IAR yet until you have approval
Yeah.
from IAR. So that's all like the whole cart and horse thing, just,
Yeah.
so as long as folks know that this is just like, hey, we're trying to get an interest, would people be willing to participate? And this is kind of how the format is going. And the exact location is to be determined, but we know it would be on this particular, we know the date and time, and the exact locations to be determined based on interest.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
And I'm sure there'll be hoo-has on Talk of Unionville that will have a whole host of opinions about a whole host of things. And I'm going to have to rejoin that one because I had to stop with that. But I'll just get a sense for it, and then we can sort of move forward quickly if that's going to happen.
I think if you're willing to do that, Stacy, that'd be great. I try to avoid all those sites personally. But that being said, we do have some time. Obviously, we're beginning of March. We have another meeting between then. But if you find that there is interest in the next couple of weeks, maybe we could talk offline maybe get some logistical stuff kind of planned out. So by the next committee meeting, we have somewhat of a plan that we can lay out, and then the rest of the committee can, pick it apart, change it, modify it.
Great.
But at least we come in with sort of a plan of action.
Great.
Okay.
Yep.
But
Yeah, I
again,
think that's-
any
that's all
thoughts
good.
about either the cleanup day or?
Yeah,
or
yeah, I have a
sales
couple
tax?
of things, yeah. So at this point, we are looking for prizes for the heaviest haul. And I put myself in charge of that, it's Kate talking. And I saw that there was a communication about the bags, and it's sounding like the town is gonna buy them this year.
Yes, so we've got money in the budget. I would just want to know how many we think we would need. They're not expensive. I'm looking at the WB Mason site right now, and 60-gallon, 1.5 mil bags is $100. 100 bags in a carton is $65, so they're not expensive.
So here's something that I always do when I get the bags, because have been purchasing them for several years, is I'm looking for either bags that are made from primarily recycled plastic, and or not from plant material.
Yep, so that WB Mason offers those search filters. I was just pulling it up to show,
Yeah, so just
I
as long as
just
they're not
need-
100% original plastic, because that kind of defeats our purpose.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll look for those. I just need to know how many do you think we need,
Sure.
100, 200. That way I can figure out how many cartons we'll need to order.
Right. When you find it, Garrett, how about you and I talk offline about that, because and maybe Stacy too, because there's going to be 4 stations. It's nice however you get these packaged that we then put a carton here, a carton there. It depends on how many are in them.
Yeah, and I
So,
think usually it comes in different sizes cartons, so maybe I'll find a mid-range carton and we'll get, 4 of those instead of 2 of the large cartons.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. All right. Yeah, let's talk about it before you order them.
Yeah, nope, I'll come up with a couple options and I'll send them to you
Okay,
right
great.
before I order them.
Super. And then I spoke with Ron from Bicycle Friendly Farmington. He's also on the Rails to Trails Committee or Commission. I'm not exactly sure how that's referred to. Maybe John Fibbert, I see you're on here. You would know, but anyway, they were interested in having their cleanup the same day. They usually have it at the beginning of March, and this year they're not doing that. And so he wanted to team up, and we talked about it, and it's looking like what we're going to do is have them located at our Tungus Mead location. They'll pitch their tent, their BFF tent, and have people from both of those organizations there as volunteers, and basically kind of we'll be working together. And it makes sense. I tried to get this going a few years ago, but they didn't want to change their dates because they were working with more towns at the same time. But it sounds like that has either, I'm not sure why that's not working anymore, but it's not. So this should garner us some more volunteers, which would be nice. And, just a bigger presence. Their tent, he was worried that he wouldn't be able to put the tent up. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. It'll attract some people. I said, because every year we locate there, we have hundreds of people walk by us and don't even stop and ask what's up or ask to help out. So maybe it'll bring more people over. So there's that. And then,
Kate,
yes.
so this is John. The Rails to Trails has been a bit different because the Rails to Trails have people who have been assigned to sections of the trail to pick up all the time regularly. And so there isn't that much trash that's ever left on the trails in most areas. So you don't need a lot of volunteers to go out there. In the past, when I've volunteered to pick up on the trails, I've gone out and not picked up a single piece of trash.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, John. The one area, and I spoke with Bruce Sear about this the other day, is that gas station right next to Big Bird Bridge. Every year and all times of the year, there is a waste dump right behind it because they're two, and I don't know why they're allowed to have two large receptacles for trash there, but the lids of them are always off and there's trash all over and behind it. And after the cleanup, even after the Rails to Trails people do it, they never clean that space up. So Bruce was going to reach out again, because I stopped into the gas station and then talked to the owner last year and just said, could you at least close your lids or make sure they're closed? Oh, yes, yes, yes. And I went by there about a week ago, trash everywhere.
Yeah, so when they clean the trail, they walk up top of the Big Bird Bridge, but they don't walk down onto the road level. So that section's
Yeah.
not even considered part of the trail.
Right, right. Yeah. So anyway, I agree that that trail is not ever really dirty. So, but regardless, they're going to join us and be another presence, which will be nice.
Yep.
Yeah, so I can touch base on two points. Kate, Bruce let me know that you had mentioned that to him, so I know he is gonna follow up. I don't have an update for you, but I know he will be following up, and I just made a note so I can check in with him tomorrow and try to circle back with an update. It's the Farmington Valley Trails Council that normally does that large Rails to Trails cleanup that you had mentioned. And I think they've just looking to take a decentralized approach. And so they asked the representatives for each of the individual towns to basically coordinate their own cleanup for the trails in their own municipality, which is how this now is getting a joint effort and getting Bicycle Advisory Committee, who has members on the Trails Council, to reach out. So whether or not that's going to stay decentralized moving forward, I don't know, but I agree. It's going to hopefully create some really nice synergy.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was great. The gentleman's name is Ron Porowski. Just, I don't know if you need that for the records.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, all set.
So Stacy and I will be meeting with him this Friday. I have to get the time, Stacy, to talk about kind of logistics and whatnot.
Great. And Kate, you and I can touch base offline this week too.
That'd be great. Yeah.
And circling back, you mentioned something about not gifts, but prizes.
Yes.
Is there anything set up for that at this point?
I am working on those. So I basically, I have yet to approach Kurt from Naples. He always gives me gift certificates for pizza, and the, oh gosh, now I'm blanking on his name, who runs the miniature golf on Route 4. Gogolinsky. What's his first name? Greg? No. Anyway, he always gives me mini golf and ice cream, and he doesn't answer his phone until March. So I'm going to be calling him tomorrow. It goes into the voicemail. He takes the winter off, which is smart. And then I have a gift certificate from the Wooden Tap. So we have 4 levels. And as I think I talked about the last meeting, we try to get food as the prize and not tax the local businesses too much. So we're not asking them for huge quantities of, donation, but at least something. And if it's a Girl Scout troop that wins, and it's 18, I usually, whatever I gather, I'll put it together enough that, it seems like they could have it at a meeting. So if there's a Girl Scout gathering, they could all have cupcakes or whatever. If it's Boy Scouts, whatever, so I base it based on who wins. And then there's an individual one. They usually get the gift card that's at a bar.
Okay, so you're on top of that. You don't need any other help with that? at this point?
Unless someone is willing to do an ask, I would welcome help.
Okay.
And if
Okay.
you are, please tell me where so that I don't do the same one.
All right, then we can talk as well, because obviously I know a lot of people obviously too.
Oh, that would be great.
So we can chat for a few minutes if you want. And then
I would
see.
like that. Yeah. Thanks, Johnny.
Okay. All right, anything else for cleanup day?
Not for me.
Perfect. All right, moving on to our discussion on composting. So we had the presentations last week, or last month, I should say. Has there been any other updates on that? I know that we had mentioned maybe getting that presentation up on the website. I forget the name of the person who presented it, but I don't know if any headways were made on that, if there's any updates other than that.
That was, I have just a little side story. Tara, the teacher from Westwoods, who was on the call last week or last meeting, reached out to Sam, that's his name, from Blue Earth. And we had a meeting, oh gosh, now it's been a week and a half ago, I believe. We Zoomed with him and talked a little bit about what it could look like for Westwoods to do it for one grade level. Or I mean, have one grade level, basically in charge of it, be part of actively part of it. And he really made it sound very, very easy. And Tara was having some more questions, and he said that there's an organization he works with that helps with kind of like the setup of it and follow up and all of that good stuff. And they were meeting this morning, and I could not make the meeting, so I can't report on what went down on that. But she's looking at potentially trying to get a pilot program going in the fall at Westwoods.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, she just like, she is so excited about this, which is wonderful. And it's great to have someone with that kind of drive. And she's, looking at all of the curriculum that she deals with and trying to fit in certain projects with that. And she says this one's a great dovetail to a lot of what's going on there. So I'll find out and I'll report back to you where that's going. But I don't know from our perspective where we're going, but I'll just let you know that she kind of took the bull by the horns.
That's
Kate,
fantastic.
Kate, this is John. Could you clarify a little bit of what they're talking about with the project at Westwoods?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. John, we talked about looking at a townwide composting program, because some towns, not only in our state, but in other states, are doing that. And so we started off having Blue Earth come, and they do pick up, pick up composting. Yes. And they also like to do stuff with municipalities, et cetera. And he spoke to us last time. And then what's happened here is Tara Vasquez is a teacher in charge of math and science curriculum for K through 6. And she's always looking for projects from an environmental perspective, and really wants to work closely with the Green Efforts Committee. And she came on our meeting and she heard this and she was like, wow. And so she's hoping that they can start doing some do composting in their cafeteria to decrease, the amount of waste that they're getting rid of, and also to use it as a test pilot and a learning thing around how much waste they're actually producing.
Okay, so what they're talking about doing at Westwoods is separate from the roadside collection.
Correct. It would be, so Blue Earth it's Blue Earth, right? Am I getting their name
Yes.
wrong? Yeah.
Yes.
No, you got it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
They would bring a truck there and pick up the bins on a weekly basis. So they would get bins, they would, they have to deal with it in a certain way. But so she's just now in the exploratory phase to see if they could do a project there. So that's where that's at.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
When will we see the money that it's going to cost? I feel like the Blue Earth rep really didn't want to tell us how much it was going to cost.
He gave a price for Westwoods.
Oh, he did.
He did. And do you think I can remember it, Stacy? No, I can't. It was not exorbitant. I was shocked, actually. But I can't tell you what that is. Sorry, I'll have to report back.
It's nice to see if there's a pilot program that goes with people volunteering it, at least to see what works and doesn't work. Because, if we get down the line with the transfer station closes and we're starting from scratch at that point, that's a big deal. So to have the pilot program with school kids, at least to kind of learn the ins and outs, get maybe the real costs that come with it, some of the pitfalls, be that much more educated and ready to go when the time comes.
That's true, Jenny. And the other thing that Sam is connecting, or he is connecting us with Canton, because Canton does it in their school system. So we're going to talk to them about what their pitfalls have been. And I already know Porter's does it, but that's a whole different level. So it'd be better to talk to, a school system like Canton.
Okay, great. Anything else on composting?
Just real quick, the meeting is posted to the website. So all of our Green Efforts meetings starting September 21 through February 1st have been posted to the website. So I can send a link to it. It's probably going to be the easiest way. But they are, so the presentation obviously is embedded within the full meeting posting. So it is there. So anyone can go back and revisit it or share it with anyone else at any point in time. So I'll forward that link out.
Okay, thank you, Shannon.
Yep. And then I guess the only other thing is that it's really up to the committee if folks are interested in moving further with this. Garrett and I had sat in on a webinar. I want to say it was last week that we sat in, and it was really more geared towards like people like We Care Denali, like what they're doing, like the end use of the compost material and purification, like making sure that the compost material is pure and seed free and weed free and PFAS free. And so they got into more of the regulatory end of it and how they're managing their product and quality control and the organic mixes. And they got into the science of it. So it's really not, it was interesting to sit in on, but it's not, obviously if we were doing our own composting, then that would be something that we'd have to be looking into. But I don't think, there's no place in Farmington and we don't have the staff or the technology to embark on that. So we would be looking, really, I think it would be whether or not the committee wants to further look into curbside and see what that would look like on a larger scale rather than the one-off individuals that choose to contract with them.
And with that, Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, it's, we talked about last month as having, just the way we're set up now with the other stuff that we do with leaf pickup and stuff, it's strictly Farmington residents. I know Blue Earth was bringing it from different places. It's kind of, apples and oranges at that point. If that's correct.
Well, correct. So if we were looking at it on a municipal standpoint, then correct, it would be those that are already receiving trash and recycling pickup. Or do we look at it because like the simple recycling is any resident in Farmington. They don't have to be tied. The way they've changed the program and you schedule your own pickup. So now you're not tied. So it opens it up to all the people on the private roads or condos or whatever. So we'd have to look to see which way makes the most sense, or is it a hybrid approach that there's a mechanism for accommodating both that would leave the residents that have regular pickup on a regular schedule, but still allow folks on private streets or condos to participate if they chose to. And is there different rates if we do it as a community as opposed to one-off individual families doing it? So
have we gotten any pricing or how that would work at this point, or do we have any other towns that are doing that at this point that we could at least bounce the idea off and how their experiences have gone?
No, we haven't. Staff hasn't done any follow-up since the presentations with looking at that specific So we could, and I can't remember, and I don't have all my notes, but I can't remember if he mentioned that there was other communities that they have, like a community, I think he did, I just can't remember where they had a community-wide contract.
Yeah,
I just can't
there
remember
are-
where.
Yeah, I don't remember. There are a couple that have community-wide contracts. Blue Earth did work with West Hartford for a while, but West Hartford switched to a different program. So Blue Earth got West Hartford set up, but now they're using someone else. I don't remember who. And there have been articles about other towns that have been exploring it since 2021. I just don't know if others have picked it up. I think Middletown is just doing restaurant, like business-based, and not doing residential, but they've kicked off a program. And then there's some others that are, I think there's a lot of towns right now that are exploring it because a lot of towns are realizing that they're
And Meriden is one.
what's that, Stacey? I didn't hear.
Meriden is piloting a program that's being paid for by the state grant.
Okay.
Yeah, the state, so Sam did mention a state grant in his presentation for composting. Unfortunately for Farmington, that deadline passed for the towns that were bidding into it. But there are towns that were successful and are participating on it. It's separate from, like, a couple of years ago, there was a proposal for a pilot composting program by the legislature that never made it out of, I don't think it made it out of committee. So it's not the same, it's not that, it's some other funding that was provided. And I'm not familiar with it, but when Sam mentioned it, I said, oh, I hadn't heard of it. So I Googled it and figured out that it was too late for us.
So we can, I mean, if the committee is interested, we can reach out to say, at least start with Sam. Patty, do you have any idea who West Hartford went to, or they've switched to someone else to?
I think I wrote it down somewhere. I'll have to find where my notes are.
Okay, and if not, I can reach out to their town planner and at least start there to try to figure out what they did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think there's a value in starting with the schools because the education component and the kids get used to it. And if we rolled it out in the schools and then maybe 2 years later tried to roll it out in the homes, it might be more successful. I know that when Brooklyn rolled it out when I lived there, I was shocked by the number of my friends that I would have totally pegged as composters who are like, it's disgusting, it's hard no. So, yeah.
I think that's a good point. I remember when recycling was introduced when I was in middle school and they presented it to all the kids at school, and I'm the kid that went home and told my parents they better start rinsing stuff out and putting it in the blue bin, and I was the recycling police. It's a little embarrassing, but I was, and I'm sure I wasn't the only middle schooler who was telling my parents to recycle. I wonder if with the press that's going around on costs for waste, if there might be a little less reluctance than there was when you left Brooklyn, Stacey. I was surprised over Christmas when I was in Minneapolis visiting my sister-in-law. They had a flyer on their fridge because their town, they're in the suburbs of Minneapolis, their town is introducing composting. They were thrilled, and they are not people that I would have pegged at all at having been interested in composting, and they are thrilled about it. Minneapolis was distributing like the 5-gallon pails and to the neighborhoods for pickup, and it was a little different than how Blue Earth does it, but I can't quite remember how that's set up. So,
Well, I guess I agree. I think it does. A lot of this does start with the kids. My general thought is it's going to take a little bit too from a research standpoint. So it sounds like, if Terra is successful, this could be in the schools as early as next fall, or at least in one school as early as next fall, which would be fantastic. I think on a town level, I'm fairly confident it's going to take longer, just to work through our level, right? To get all the research done, get this group on support, and then say, okay, I can talk to the town manager, and then do we want to do a presentation to town council? Do we want to do some public information meetings and interest or public interest meetings? So these things have a way of taking on like a considerable amount of time. And then you look at, a lot of stuff gets done in the summer. So we've got, April, May to kind of putter with it. And then the next thing it's boom, it's September. So I'm thinking maybe we'll putter with it a little bit and just kind of leave it on and report in, even if it's, just to say we've only made a couple of phone calls, but just kind of leave it on there. And if other folks hear of stuff, just to let us know. Does that seem reasonable to everyone?
Mhm.
Does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last comments for composting? All right, moving on. So under other, we've got discussion on EV charging station. I don't know if Garrett, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll start off. So I know we had talked a little bit about the last meeting, and then I think Kate had sent some information out about the Eversource grants and things like that. And I think a couple days later, or maybe a day before our meeting, we had been reached out to by an energy company, Artis Energy Solutions. They install EV chargers. So I had a meeting with them. They were able to explain the program a little bit more. Obviously, their business, they're offering services. So they kind of gave us a cost breakdown. So my understanding is that Eversource does have funds available for public chargers, for towns. So Eversource will cover up to 20% of the installation cost and make ready costs. And the only requirement being that the towns have to pay for 50% of the electric vehicle charger. And one charger charges 2 vehicles. So we get 2 vehicle charging stations out of one proposal. They said that it ends up costing for the towns about $5,000 to $10,000, depending on the location of the charger, between the cost of the charger and, maybe the electrical panel needs to be updated or things like that. One of the things they did mention is that when they go to install the charger, it's not that much more expensive to install a second trench with another electrical conduit. So that way in the future, if the town wanted to add another charger, they just have to run the cables and buy the charger, and the trenching's already there and done. The chargers use 240 volts, and it's about the similar consumption to an electric dryer. The chargers that they sell, they're called ChargePoint is the company. They're smart chargers, and so the town has control. We can choose to charge to charge. There's no good way to say that. It also has an app, so people can sign up to be in line. You'll get a notice when your time's up, so that it's time to move your car, and then someone else will get a notice saying that there are spots available and they can go and charge. That being said, obviously it's something. I'm assuming that it's something that Green Efforts wants to move forward with. It would just be picking a site where we think it would be a good fit, and then I can reach out to this company and they can give us a better estimate of the cost. I would assume that it would most likely be Town Hall or the library. Those are probably the most likely spots that electric vehicles would be. So I was just looking to get the committee's opinion or suggestions, and then I can reach out to them and we can start finding out some costs for what this would be before going to town council.
So thoughts from the committee on the locations. I do think obviously that, you get always these estimates, but until you can dig into the actual location and get a real-time estimate, so at least kind of what we're looking at, I think is a good idea. I think both those locations would work, but feedback from the rest of the committee.
I think there's advantages by doing it near town hall. From the perspective, if at some point the town starts to, when you have to update town vehicles, looking at getting an electric vehicle, if there's already that conduit there to put in another station for town vehicles or something, then it's right there already. And so from that perspective, I think there might be some efficiencies. It might be more, I don't own an EV. I don't know if it would get used more if it were at the library, or if it would be more convenient. I mean, it's across the Monteith Drive, but I've heard people complain before about lesser things, so.
So Garrett, you, when you were in Plainville, you had some experience. So you guys have had one for a few years.
Yeah, so they had the one installed.
On that.
Yeah, so they had the EV chargers installed, obviously, before I was there. It was a different grant. It's actually a lesser amount, but Plainville had a charger at Town Hall. It started out as the Plainville town manager had a plug-in hybrid. So he parked there to charge up, but in the past year, I saw more and more in varieties of electric vehicles parking at Town Hall. I mean, Plainville Town Hall is in downtown. It's kind of a central location. I know Farmington Town Hall is a little out of the ways from Unionville Center, but it would still show up on maps for people that have electric vehicles. There's apps and services that show where the nearest chargers are, public chargers, I should say. There's obviously private chargers elsewhere. So I mean, it still show up. Route 4 gets a lot of traffic. Town Hall or the library, it doesn't really matter. Again, they're right next to each other. So it's not like there's services nearby, whether, sometimes people that have electric vehicles, they'll park, and if there's Wi-Fi available, they'll do work or something like that while they're in their car while it's charging. So, whether the library has public Wi-Fi that reaches outside the building, or the Town Hall Wi-Fi reaches to the parking lot where the charger would most likely be, it's a thing to consider. So just items, and obviously the committee's recommendation. So I'm just looking for it.
I would start with one location and then see how cumbersome it is to quote both. I honestly think that, from my own experience, whether it's from the building side or from my codes and standards side, this has been a topic that's been around for a while, but it's never been as heavily discussed as the last maybe year or two. Meaning like customers coming and asking for it to be either planned for or installed during the construction of a new home, or a lot of the presentations that we get up at DAS for our Codes and Standards Committee on, making like parking lots ready for this, or, kind of setting it up and the et cetera. So if the company is not opposed to it, I don't think that, the kind of costs that you just laid out, if they're realistic, is too much of an ask to kind of get both quotes in both locations, because obviously one may have accessible electrical and conduit may be strictly in grass, one may be cutting across tar. That could be a completely different thing. So maybe just from a cost standpoint, we may be push for one or the other, but in that price range, I don't think it's an exorbitant ask for the town to consider it. So it'd be nice to have that information. That's just my thought.
Yep, that's no problem. I'm sure, they're right across the street from each other. So I'm assuming, so basically I would let them know they'd send out their electrician to take a look at the panel to see if the panel needs any upgrades in order to allow it. And then also give us some estimates for, the distance for trenching and things like that.
So can I just ask a question? Kate, I'm wondering, when you cite these things, you want people to have access, and also as a town, you'd like people who are driving down 84 who need to charge their cars on their way to New York or whatever, to use some of the local businesses. Is there any word on what's going to happen over there at the old Parsons lot? Because that would be an ideal location for one, right off the highway. And then you've got those little shops across the street, walkable area. Do we have any clarity on what's going to happen over there? Nothing.
There's been no updates on that right now. We're still waiting for the deed from DOT. So there's still paperwork that's ongoing with the DOT. We technically don't even have ownership of the lot as of yet. So and then it's folks making up. Yeah, I guess that's really the first step. So we need to get the ownership of the lot, and then I believe there's other things that still need to be done with the lot once we actually take ownership.
Yeah, so the last that we discussed it from a council standpoint is, yes, we're still waiting for the deed. We've been waiting for quite a while. We did have all of our representatives in 2 meetings ago, and we pushed them on this issue. See where the clog up is, see where where these things are being held up, and see if they can, get that moving a little bit. And I know that, once we actually have ownership, I think at that point we'll be kind of looking at committees to see what is possible with the lot. But until we actually have the deed, and we don't know if that's tomorrow or 6 months or a year from now, we're kind of just waiting at this point.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Excuse me, I have a question about the EV. I'm not familiar with it at all. How long does somebody have to park there to get a full charge?
Oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Sierra.
This is Sierra. I recently purchased one. I've had one for 3 weeks. So I think this is a good time to talk about my experiences. My experiences at the dealership were that the people who worked there weren't necessarily familiar themselves with the length of charging times. So I was lucky enough to, I'm lucky enough to live 10 minutes away from the Nissan dealership on Route 6, in which I've been there probably 8 to 10 times in the last 3 weeks, because your level 1, which is your regular outlet in the home, charges about 2% per hour. I have a range on my vehicle that's 226 miles. And depending on how I'm charging it, it could take 3 days, it could take 8 hours, or it could take 2 hours. So I have the PlugShare app, for example, and that PlugShare app will tell me which level the chargers are across the state. And we have a very limited amount of these quick chargers. And I have to tell you, 2 hours it'll take my battery to go from 0 to 100. And that's the quickest option I have, 2 hours for a full battery. So when I charge my vehicle, I leave it there and I go across the street on Route 6 and I do shopping, and then I go back to my car. Some people will leave their car the entire night because of how slow the charging is. So my suggestion is get a quick charger, because you're going to need it, especially if you have, if you're planning on converting some of these municipal vehicles to electric, you're going to need that option to do a quick charge. So if you plug in at 50%, you only need about a half an hour to get to 80%. And they tell you when you buy one to, leave it around 80%, just like a cell phone, so you don't wear out the battery. But it's either that or it's 4 hours. So I didn't realize that big difference. And that was something that wasn't necessarily explained in great detail based on the staff at the dealership. So that was an eye-opening experience. And I've gone there and there are 3 people in line waiting for the quick charger. So I had to go back at 4 a.m. where I knew, I was confident that no one would be around to charge. So just an FYI, they come obviously different levels, but a quick charger is really, really important, especially if you're doing that commute, that New York and Boston route, to have that option.
Yeah, so
Sierra, can I ask a question? At the dealership, is it free, or do you have a fee for your charge there?
It's absolutely free. Yep.
And is that because you purchased your car there, or it's free to anyone that comes through?
It's free to anyone.
Interesting. Okay.
So just to expand on what Sierra said, so there's 3 types of chargers. There's the level 1, which is basically a 120 volt outlet. It's basically the people that you just plug it into an outside outlet on your house and just let it charge overnight. There's a class 2 level 2 charger, which would be what the town would be looking to install, which is obviously higher rated. It varies depending on how much amps the circuit is. I wouldn't know off the top of my head how much charge you would get. And then there's level 3 charger, which is, if everyone's familiar with the Tesla superchargers, those are DC capacitive chargers. So those charge very quickly, but those are a lot more expensive. That's why, you know, you'll see the Tesla chargers with 10 or 12 chargers, because the capital outlay for that needs more chargers to justify that. So, and the state grant is only paying for the level 2 chargers. So, you know, it could be someone that comes in, maybe they have got maybe they're coming to town hall for a public meeting. When those start up again, they can plug in their car, come in for the meeting, leave, and it's got some more charge than when they left. Probably because of the location for the town facilities, it probably wouldn't be someone that's parking there doing a full-on charge. It'd probably just be a top offer, an intermittent charge while they're parked there doing business with town or at the library. We have been getting more people asking, businesses looking to add electric chargers to their sites. So it's definitely something that's going to become more commonplace. So it's really, you know, they'll be more common eventually than gas stations, just because most sites will just have them available for anyone that parks there. Because they take longer to charge, so you're charging more often as opposed to just going to the gas station once a week or something like that.
And I will say from our end on the construction side, not on the public side, but level two. So we're by code have to have a separate circuit in every bay for a level 1, which is just a regular, 15 amp circuit. So if you have 2 garage bays, you got to have 2 separate circuits. That way you can charge, 2 cars at once. But that doesn't last very long for people who just dabble with it. They pretty much go into level 2 right at their house, and that's the equivalent of a 50, sometimes a 60 amp, depending on which car manufacturer, which charger they're using. But that's the equivalent of your electric stove or your electric dryer, and that being installed on a new construction site is not that expensive. It's a little bit more when you're talking, for an existing home, especially if you've got service upgrades or issues with the panel, older homes, that kind of stuff. Then the numbers can get pretty high. Other than that, even us, we're charging somewhere with the electrician, somewhere between $800 and $900 to get it completely ready to put this charger in there. So the prices have come down, and they are a lot more commonplace, like I said. Now, also on the private side, we've seen a ton of, and I sent Garrett the paperwork of rebates and stuff coming through Eversource, things like that for private places like condo associations. So we're considering one on the other side of town, over by the West Hartford line, where you would pay for it, but you would bring it across where there's parking for the meeting house, where people from the development can actually use it. So we're actually investigating it from that end as well. It's, whether the public can use stuff on a private site, that's where it gets a little murky, because they're, private associations or condo complexes. So we're trying to feel if there's enough demand inside, or if people would prefer to just spend a little bit extra and get it done in their own houses. But we've seen them pop up, like I said, this has been a huge point of discussion. And I would agree with you, Sierra, that anything level 1 at this point is kind of, it's only because you have to, I'll put it that way. That if you're going to get any kind of real use out of this, where it's not too much of an inconvenience, then you're doing the level 2s.
I will just share one thing that I learned from the electric company. So Eversource will offer rebates for certain models of the level 2 charge points. Those actually are specific models because they monitor usage via Wi-Fi. And they told me that if the grid gets overloaded, they will shut off electricity to those first. So that's the deciding factor, I guess. Am I interested in saving $1,200 and like having this thing weigh on me, if the grid's overloaded? It's just something to think about.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because I will bring that up to my representative, who we deal with from an Energy Star and that kind of, because I have not heard that. But I will tell you from experience that the biggest issues we've had with planning for this, when the grid is overloaded, is typically middle of the day, middle of the summer, a lot of air conditioners running, that kind of stuff. So it is not, when you look at the year in general, it's not the most common time, but if you're stopping in, in your transits and stuff, that may overlap. But most people would be charging, evenings or nighttime, overnight, that kind of stuff. You shouldn't run into that issue at those times.
Thank you.
All right, so Garrett, then you'll reach out
Yeah.
to and see what's involved in getting some actual quotes for either the town hall or the library or both.
Yeah, so the grant only covers one charger, so I'll see if it's possible to get both sites done just for quotes, so we have an idea. I'm assuming that, like I said, they're saying generally the cost for the towns is $5,000 to $10,000, which, concerning the actual cost of the whole project, that's not a big, big scale, but we can definitely find out. And again, like we said, they're right across the street from each other. There's a crosswalk connecting them. The only time you'd have trouble is when the high schools coming in and getting out, crossing from one to the other. So, but I'll reach out to them and I'll get quotes, see if we can get quotes for both of them. If not, I'll start at the town hall and then go to the library next.
But it seems to me that if we're looking at a location for a charger, one of the things that we need to consider is, do you want somebody hanging out at the library at 2 o'clock in the morning? People who come in and charge their cars, not necessarily do the usual hours, and they're not going to be there for 15 minutes. They're going to be for some hours. And that might be a thing to consider when you're talking about where you're going to locate these.
What about, with that in mind, if that's a concern, is there any thought of the community center police station?
I just thinking from an access standpoint, if you're dropping it there, and I don't even know if there's sidewalks going up past the community center.
Yeah, that's a excellent
So
point.
it just seems like the town hall from an accessibility standpoint, the proximity to the number of neighbors around might be a better fit. Just my thought.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
One thing at a time, one thing at a time.
And what we'll do too is the very next step that Garrett and I have is to talk with Russ and Kathy. Right. So we've got to talk, we're not having an electrician in looking at panels without having talked with Russ and Kathy. So that's the very next thing that's going to happen. There is interest on both their parts. So we'll obviously explain the interest on the committee's part, share the research that Garrett has already done. And basically we got to get a consensus from them as to their preference, or if they have a preference. The library, interestingly, although it is town property, it is overseen by its own board. And so the internal functions of the library and the building itself are run by their own entity. The town obviously takes care of the land, et cetera, around it. So we may not actually have access to the electrical panel at the library, or not readily access. So that may be a bigger lift on our part, just because how the structures are set up. So, but we'll start with Kathy and Russ, and then we'll go from there and provide updates as we move along, and certainly have updates for everyone at the April meeting.
Okay, just to comment, sometimes I think having it too close to the library and taking some of the more accessible locations for people that need to be closer to the door, it's probably better closer to that. But I know the high school is going through the early enabling package over the summer, and they're going to be looking to potentially tap off the Staples House to run the temporary lights or the temporary parking lot for 2 years. But there may be an opportunity to reuse that and maybe get some efficiencies that way. Maybe the timing won't work, I'm not sure, but just keep that in mind.
No, good thought. I forgot about that. Good thought.
Okay. Anything else for EV stations? Any final questions? Okay, thank you, Sierra, for your input. Really appreciate a little bit of real world experience All right, moving on, I guess the only thing we have left is adjournment. So if anybody wants to make the motion.
Kate motions to adjourn.
Second,
Okay. All right, and a second from, I think that was Patty.
that was me. Yep. Thanks.
All those in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Okay, see you everyone. We'll see you in a month.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Have a good night.